Good day everyone and welcome to another tutorial. Today we will be talking about clouds. And the first one is a procedural texture SkyDome. Try saying that fast. It's a very simple way of producing clouds that look really nice, as you saw in the opening. So let's get started. Just need to erase a few things. As you know, I have a typical setup. So just need to delete a few things. So there we go. Okay, the rest is already set up. As you can see under my render layer settings, only solid is ticked. Everything else is also turned off, even shadow, emit, ambient occlusion, environment, indirect, you name it. The only reason I disabled everything here as far as this goes is just so it will render faster. So if you have a complicated scene that includes halo particles, Z-transparency, edge, strand, freestyle, then add those things. Don't take them out in a monkey see, monkey do kind of way. Just adapt for your project. Okay. So add a plane. This is just so we can establish what is ground and what is sky. So you can make this like a flat brown color or a flat green color. I'm going to make it flat green. Let's look at that. Oh, no sun lamp. That's another advantage of this. If you just want to do like a sky animation with the clouds going past or whatever the case might be, you don't even need a sun lamp. You don't even need anti-aliasing because the textures are anti-aliased. So that's just a heads up there. Okay. Now to add your SkyDome, all you need to do is you need to add a sphere, UV sphere. The segments on 32, rings on 16 is high resolution enough. Okay, with your UV sphere added, place it nice in the center. I accidentally moved my 3D cursor, so I'm just going to knock it back into place and say Shift S, selection to cursor. And it's nice and center. Okay, now what you first want to do is you want to press R to rotate the sphere. Press X and 90 degrees. This is so that when we do add our horizon influence, that the horizon will actually be on the horizon. Let's call this SkyDome. Let's call this also SkyDome. Make sure it's white. You're going to be using shadeless, no translucency, no mist. For fancy compositing, when you want to like add a sun behind the textures and all that kind of stuff, I recommend separating it out. So you can either use a pass index or a material or an object index. Sorry. So you can set that if you want to. For the tutorial, I'm not going to be doing any compositing. I'm purely going to be showing you how to add the textures there. No shadows are needed at all, making this a very efficient and fast material. And now we get to the fun part. So this will be our sky color. Add a blend. Now remember, this first texture we add is the one that's on the bottom, and it is the strongest blue in the sky. That's the color you're going to make this one. So take out one of these sliders so we only have a solid color and add a very strong blue. I'm going to use this one over here. And I'm going to be using the sky color again. Just going to move it down. And I'm going to duplicate it and call it Cloud Mask. And set it to clouds. The reason we're doing a cloud mask is so that you can get various edges on your clouds. Clouds are never really uniform in the way that they break up. It depends on your angle. It depends on the kind of winds. It depends on how thick the cloud is. It always varies. So this cloud mask just gives us that slight sense of variety. So just add another slider back. About there and take out the opacity so that it looks like this. If you want to, you can already just slide it around, put it on generated for the moment, and set the Y to 2. And now below that, leave a gap we're going to be adding 2 cloud textures in here. And now we're going to be adding one, and we're going to call this horizon hues. Set it to blend. Add a ramp. Set this slider to be in the middle because this is going to be our, for lack of a better term, widest part of the sky texture. So let's just make that a blue and reduce the saturation to be about there. Select that same color, boost the saturation, not that far though, almost there, and take that same color, boost the saturation all the way, and don't take it too far, approximately there. Now you can just duplicate that exact same thing on this side. We're only going to be using this side anyway. So take out the opacity and reduce the opacity, or alpha if you prefer to call it alpha. Set it to vertical, set it to generated, and now if you just select this, Control B, and you set it to rendered mode, you see that? Got a little SkyDome. So I just want to increase that white influence to about there. So I want to up this. Okay, that's beautiful. Just go solid. Okay. Now this is our first cloud texture. This is our hard clouds, thick clouds. So let's call this one clouds.thick and set it to clouds, ease, give it a good strength. And remember to add a little gray in there as well. And give it a bit less so that it's nice and varied. Okay, that looks good. And this one will be our soft clouds. So you can call this one clouds soft. Oh, this one you also have to make 2 on the thing. Set it to generated for now. Okay, let's call this one clouds.soft. You can call them wispy, you can call them thin, you can call them whatever you want to. Also on generated, this one we're not changing on this, but we are adjusting it so that it's varied. And we are adjusting this as well. I'm going to make it white, just for the sake of ease. Okay. Okay, let's just give it some depth. Let's keep it on 2 actually. This one can have a lot more depth. Make about 13. And give the mask a depth of about 20. So if you were to look at this now, this is what you would see. Now these clouds are a little bit too thick for my taste, to be honest. So I'm just going to knock them back a little bit and pull that out. Okay, that's nice. And I do want these to be slightly bigger and more soft like that. That looks nice. Let's see what it looks like on linear. No, way too soft. That's too soft. Let's go easy. Okay. Okay, so that's good for now. So let's go solid. And now you're going to scale this up. You don't have to go too far. Just like that. And scale it on the z-axis, the global z-axis, so that it forms like an egg. Like that. So that when you look at it from the camera's view, just want to make sure the camera is actually selected, not something else, that you see something like this. I just want to stretch it out a little bit on the z-axis. Not too far. Okay. That looks nice. Okay, next step. We need to tie our coordinates for our SkyDome to an empty. I just want to set this to 83 And this one to 83 as well. That's the right proportions I used in the previous test runs, and make that 51. So add an empty, not a empty, it's wrong grammar. That's 83, 51, 83, and rotate it on the x-axis by 90 degrees. So 83, 51, 83, 51, and now set your textures to the empty. So you go Object, Dropper, Empty. Just want to see if I can fit it all into one window so that it's easier to achieve. Hey, there we go. Okay. Object, select Empty, Object, select Empty, and there's nothing else. So that's good. Let's get rid of those for now. So now if you were to, I just want to split the screen so it can show it better. Let's select a piece of the sky. No. Okay. Okay, so now if you move this, you can see that your clouds move. Just want you to see that they actually do even change shape. I want to reduce this one, it's a little too much. That's too little. You just gotta have to play with this. Sometimes you get it the first time, sometimes you have to mess with it a while before you get the results you want. Yeah, this is about what I had before, so I'm just gonna increase the size of it slightly and sharpen it up a bit. Yeah, that's nice. What I also want to do is I want to decrease this and thin this out like that. Okay, now pretty much all you need to do is you adjust it for your scene so that you get the right look that you want, and you render it up. Do stay tuned for 2 more sections on different clouds as well. Welcome to the second part of this tutorial. In this particular part, I'm going to be showing you how to create smooth clouds like you just saw in the example. So let's get started. What you need to do is you need to add a cube, and you need to add a sun lamp if you don't have one already. And you need to add a hemi lamp. It just gives us more light. The hemi light needs to be slightly blue. No specularity. Sunlight needs to be white and on 1. Sorry about that. We can call make it 7, 11, threshold of 1. The reason I'm using a threshold of 1 is it produces the least amount of samples possible under 7 samples. Okay, that's good. Now under our render layer settings, don't need sky, don't need edge, don't need strand, don't need freestyle, don't need daylight, don't need Z transparency. Don't want that visible, only want it as a pass, and we want material index. That's good. Only the first layer. Under our world settings, you don't need any sky whatsoever. Environment lighting, put it on 0.1. Distance on 10 is fine. Samples on 4. Also adaptive, also threshold of 1. I'm running through this because I want to get this done as quickly as possible and get you the information as quickly as possible as well. So how you model this is the same way as you would in Andrew Price's cloud tutorial. Can't refer me back to that to improve my own cloud modeling, and it has helped a lot. So do check that out, link in the description. So extrude this and model a few clouds. I'm going to, like you've just seen, you just extrude and you create various clouds. So I'm going to skip ahead so you don't have to sit and just watch me model clouds. Okay, and we are back. So here you have 3 basic clouds. Well, not all that basic, but you get the idea. It's literally just extrusion. It's nothing fancy, nothing you haven't done before if you've used Blender for any length of time. Just want to extend this one out a little bit as well. Okay, there you go. So we have 2 big clouds and a little cloud over there. And I just want to position them so that it looks a little bit fancy. I mean, we're supposed to make something that's pretty, so what's it looking at? Okay, it's looking there. I want it to look that way. So because it's going to look that way, I want the sun to shine from this angle instead. Something like that. And this is going to be rotated 90 degrees too. Okay. So I'm happy with that. Of course, you know the routine. You have to save as often as you possibly can to prevent any data loss. So let's save. Now for naming. So let's call this cloud 00. Copy that. Paste it, enter, and paste it, enter. New material. Call this cloud matte. Both are going to be Toon, all the way smooth. This one's 0.25. This one stays on 5. And we do give our clouds a slight bluish color. Translucency is 100%, no transparency, no subsurface scattering, full oversampling, no mist, pass index of about 2. Receive transparent shadow and no buffer or cast approximate needed. That looks cool. Let's call this one our variance texture. Go for clouds and go for ease. You can use overlay, but I didn't use overlay on just plain black and white. So reduce the saturation and the hue change. Okay. And change that, of course, to be different hue. And a little brighter. So it needs to also be brighter. So let's go for something like that. Okay. Can set that to overlay, about 0.8. Set it to global. 0.05 so that it's big enough to actually make a difference, and depth of 0. Cool. So if you were to render this right now, you would see 2 gray blocks and 1 blue one. So select them all, Control L, and say materials. Now for the modeling part. So select your smallest little cloud and go subdivision, set it to 5 and 5, not 6. I recommend turning that off actually for the moment. Adding a displacement modifier, calling this Voronoi, because this is what we're going to be using to model these, just textures. Let's call this number 1. Change the settings. No, it's Voronoi, not cloud. Invert your color ramp, set it to 0.7. It has to be distance squared, 1.5 and 1.05. Okay, that looks good. Back to your modifiers, add another one. Duplicate that texture, make it number 2. And this is going to be a bigger cloud texture. or texture for the cloud, and we're just going to be changing the size. The size is just going to be 2. So making that 2. And going back there, we are going to copy it again. And this time call it cloud detail. Switch to cloud textures. Set the size to 0.55. Sorry, 0.55. Depth 24. And select all of these. Press T, hit smooth. Just turn off everything. Control, click down. Turn off everything. Now select them. Control L and modifiers. So just if you want to see what it looks like, that's what a little cloud looks like at the moment. So I'm just going to turn those off again. And now we can render our first time. Got some old compositing I need to erase. So let's just start from scratch in terms of the compositing. Let's add a render layer. Let's add an output, viewer, and compositor. Stick those in there. Okay. And we look good for the moment. Let's quickly add some background. So add a plane. Just unwrap it. Call this sky. Add a blend texture. Let's just make this shadeless before we get to anything else. Set it to vertical. Give it a really strong blue on the one side. And a desaturated version of set blue on the other. Change the hue also. Not by much, but just change it as well. I think that should do the trick. I want to link it, say copy rotation, select the camera, so that it's always facing the camera, just like that, and move it back, move it over, scale it up, and check it out. Just need to save first. Absolutely wonderful. Just want to double check on the environment stuff and the render layers. Everything is excluded as it should be. That is wonderful. Now let's get to the compositing aspect. So let's set up our ambient occlusion, which you do by going converter, getting your ID mask. If you don't ID mask it, this is what you get. If you multiply black over anything, it's going to be black. So you need this mask. So go color and go ambient occlusion, goes in the bottom. This one has to be the filter. And this one, where's that color ramp? Needs to be a nice blue. Something like that. All the way over there, set it to ease, and move this over. And this has to be blurred by 0.5. And of course later multiplied. But first, we also need to produce some lines before we multiply this over. Oh dear, okay. So what you need to do is you need to take your normalize, and you need to take your z-pass, and this is what you get. See, it looks very cool. Just want to zoom in so you can see better. Oh, to zoom in, you press Alt-V, and to zoom out, you just press V. Okay, now you create a difference by blurring one input and not blurring the other. So go fast Gaussian. You don't have to set it quite high, you just go 0.15 and take the original, and then you'll see these pretty little lines over here. And this you need to add over itself. I used 15. create these beautiful little lines over there. Sorry, I used 12, not 15. We also want to soften this up. So what I did was I took this as well, and just get rid of that viewer node. And I used a color ramp to heighten the contrast. And I added that over itself by 50. And that became my multiply to get rid of most of the outline. Sorry, just click multiply. Okay. Just need to take that down, something along those lines. There we go. Oh, don't forget you have to invert the colors as well, sorry. Okay. That looks pretty nice. Okay, now both of these need color ramps just to make sure everything is normalized. Both this multiplied version and the original. Now the original gets added over our original image. Let's use this little composite node so that you can see something like this. Okay, that's by about 20. Sorry, the multiplied version, not the original one. Okay, and that I multiplied by 200 in the example, but 200 is way too much for this, so we're going to knock it down to be about 10. Yeah, 10 is fine. Okay. And then you will also be blurring this one over it by 2. Add this over, and of course you need to duplicate this one so that we can just start softening up the clouds as well. So let's just add a blur node in there, fast Gaussian, stick one in there as well, place that in there and set it to mix, not add. Relative, set this to 1 each and set this to be 0.5. And there you see we already have some softness. 0.5 is a little bit, let's make 0.6. A little bit more clear. Okay. I'm happy with that for now. Just clamp it just in case. Okay, next. Now we need to multiply our ambient occlusion, which we made all the way over here. I just want to space this out because it looks kind of scrunched up. There we go. Put it about there. Okay. Now we get to multiply this over. So I'm going to place that in the top one. Top position, finally it's in the bottom slot. And I use about 0.6 just to create variation. As you can see, it creates a very nice look. And now we get to adjust the tone. So to adjust the tone, you use a color ramp, completely black and white. And you use another one. Not another one, you just use a mix node. And you set a value here, let's say about 0.6. And you need to configure your color ramp. You need to make it a nice blue, really nice blue. Just slightly offset, set it on ease. And use, not too bright, but it has to have a nice color. Something along these lines should do the trick. Value of about 0.6 should do. As you can see, it's still slightly blue, but it's not completely gray. Now it's time to create a blur mask. The reason we do a blur mask is because we already have some nice fuzzy edges and we would like to sustain those. So you can just set this to 1. Ugh, the mouse doesn't always want to cooperate. And let's go collect our mask. Yeah, I can stretch it over if you want to. So it creates a nice little fuzzy area over there. So that needs to be the inside of the clouds, and we need to, of course, go gather our original output as well. So let's get a carrier. Let's use a viewer node. Oh dear. Okay. Okay, there we go. See, there you go. Now you have some light clouds, and they're beautiful, and they're hanging out, and it's just awesome. Let's see what happens if we adjust this slightly. Slightly more blue is too blue. Just want to push this up a little bit so it's more dark. Okay. Let's go 0.65. I want to go all 7 on it, but yeah, you get the point. And then just to top it off, we need a little bit of a blur. Can you imagine adding blur to this project? I mean, it is just ridiculous. So let's add some more blur. This time you can use, let's go 4.5. And our original, put that in there, and blur. Now I want to up some of the original lines that we created. Not this one, around here, where we only used about 10. So I want the lines to stand out a little bit more. So I'm going to try like 15. Let's try the 2. 200 is way too much. I don't know why 200 worked in my other project. I think I had enough Z-pass. Let's try 100. Still too much. 50? This is fun. Yeah, I think I'll go for 50. So zoom in a bit. 50 is cool. I like 50. Stick with 50. Okay. And that's basically it. If you want to, you can add more blur to this. Go nuts. Okay, and welcome to part 3. In this part, I'm going to be showing you 2 ways to make Toon shaded clouds. The first one is the easiest, and that is using compositing only. So let's get into it. Now, when we last did our clouds, we had this as our render result. Now, as you can see, there's quite a good definition in there, especially if you look at this little areas over here that we got by adding our variance texture. So if you were to go in your node editor, not your logic editor, big difference between the two. You just need to take a converter, use your ID mask, can set it to 2, because that's what we defined our material as. Get a mix node. That's fine. In this case, I recommend picking a color that's the closest to the edges of the clouds. In this case, it'll be this darker blue. So I want you to do the same for the background, except we're not going to be coloring it exactly the same. We're just going to be inverting it. So you take the input, and this time you put it in at the top. So now the clouds are blue and the sky is blue. Awesome. Let's just see what happens if I blur the filter, the factor a bit. I noticed that it creates funny edges. So let's go 0.25. Now see, it starts showing edges. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add that over itself. Let's go 5. I don't want any weird edges at all. You don't want any weird edges? I don't want any weird edges. Okay, that looks great. Now you get to mix. Just want to see this result again. Okay, this will be our result that goes in here, but we have to blur it. But we're going to blur it after a color ramp, not before. There we go. Fast Gaussian. Set it to be, let's start with 1. Okay, now set this to constant. Select this specific viewer node. And of course, our mask. Ooh, we gotta blur the mask. We gotta blur the mask. Just get rid of that thing. Okay. No, not this one. So what you do is you blur it and you add it over itself just to enlarge it. So you would go like, I'm just going to click this one as well and clamp it and go like just 1. 1 gives us a nice fuzzy looking edge, which is exactly what we want. Just want to reduce the blur to be about 0.5. We want it to be sharp-ish, not super sharp, just a suggestion of sharp. Okay, now create a black. It will be like this color, not exactly, we want it to be darker. So let's make that our second tone and create a third tone that is an increased saturation and reduced value. Okay. Now you just have to move this up slightly so we get something along those lines. Not too much, not too little. And then we just increase the value a bit more. I think we can stand in the case of the clouds to use a brighter tone. So let's just up it a little bit. I want it to be approximately that much, a little bit less, something like that. Okay. Now this is one way you can do a more Toon shaded cloud. Obviously you can reduce the blur, you can increase it, you know, go nuts. It's absolutely up to you. But another way you can do this is by simply adjusting your material. If you were to go into 3D view, just going to say this as a separate project because I don't want to lose this material. Okay. Now if you go into your material, you can set a ramp, get rid of the specularity, and keep it on result. You can now set this to constant and set this one to your blue color and make it completely opaque. That looks good. I just want to reduce the blue color because it's like a little bit too strong. A little bit too faded. It sometimes seems like it's one extreme or the other one. So you want it to be approximately that much. Remember, this is just a gauge. This is not the ultimate material machine preview thing. So you're going to have to render it out to see it. So let's just remove this variance texture and hit render. And that is exactly why we do test renders. Let that be a lesson. Okay. So decrease the white. Okay, that looks fine for the moment. I think we can turn off the Hemi. And now we can slightly increase our white again. To about there. And there you have it. That's how you adjust the material to achieve it. Now, if you want to, you can go into your node editor and you can select your Toon shape by going for your ID mask, set it to 2, oh dear, and then go get your ambient occlusion, usually bottom slot, get your color ramp, set it to constant, something like that, and blur it, not super much, just about 0.5 at the most. Then you can use another color ramp. Just to sharpen it out so that it's not all fuzzy and weird. And then you can multiply that over the original result. Obviously, I do recommend picking a color, not just dumping it on there. So let's pick this blue and then just taking it. Oh wow, I kind of like that. Let's just reduce the effect of it. Increase the scale. Too much. See what happens if you do that this way. Something like that. Okay. And now, if you simply just blur it again, but with your overall blur, not the isolating the clouds and blurring the clouds, not that sort of thing. I'm talking about just the way you would soften your whole image, that kind of a blur. By going like 1 and setting it to be about 0.5 or 0.48. And there you have a more Toon shaded type of cloud. Again, this is not a perfect method, but it's the closest I've thankfully gotten so far. I'm super grateful to be even able to get this result. Almost looks like fuzz with juice. Anyway, I hope you can use this. I hope this gives you a head start. Have a great one and God bless.